Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
Chatting with Dr. Austin Crowe, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine for our Inside the Training Room. Jayden Reed went out with an injury in last night's game, seen broken clavicle or collarbone. Austin, is that essentially the same thing?
They are the same thing, yeah. So the actual bone is the clavicle, but it's kind of layman terms collarbone, yes, correct.
Okay, so he looked like he was in a ton of pain afterward. I've never broken mine, so I don't know, but... So for his position, receiver, football, we're used to it with Aaron Rodgers and such, breaking it a couple times. Yeah. What's kind of a timeline for an injury like this, and does it affect it since he's a receiver and maybe, a guy who probably gets hit a lot more?
It's a couple variables. So one of the big ones is the fracture pattern. So fractures can be markedly displaced, they can be non-displaced, they can be broken into multiple pieces. We call that comminuted. All those play a role in how quickly it'll heal. The other thing is whether they elect to decide to do surgery or not. And I don't think I've seen anything saying that one way or the other. So if they decide to put plates and screws in, sometimes you can argue that might get him back to sports a little bit faster because you get the bones directly lined up against each other, so it has the ability to heal a little quicker. That it won't make a marked difference. My anticipated timeline would be right around that 6 to 8 week mark. That's when we tell most athletes after they break their collarbone. Again, though, how hard he hit, my guess is he has a displaced fracture, so meaning the bone's actually moved. So I would not be surprised if he gets a plate and screws and then is back playing it again right in that 6 to 8 week mark.
So, that's, with that, would he have to wear any extra protection when he comes back or anything like that? Because I think, if I remember right from the whole Aaron Rodgers stuff when he broke his collarbone, how many scans he went through? Because remember that was like, is it healed and all that? Does it make a difference if that plate is on there? Can they still do that? Do they have to make sure that it's all fully healed and attached, I guess?
Yeah, generally we'll do follow just plain x-rays, but, NFL players get treated differently than the rest of us.
Yeah.
That's just the way it works, right? So they do get special scans. The best way to assess bony healing, without a doubt, is what's called a CT scan, which is, they think of it like a three-dimensional x-ray. So we can really see closely where there's fracture healing or there's not. It wouldn't shock me if they're really going week by week if they're saying, look, are we seeing good bony healing? But for the most part on x-ray, you get a pretty good sense of whether or not the bone's healing correctly. But like I said, it does matter on fracture pattern as well, so that does play a role. But it wouldn't surprise me if they're going to be monitoring it more closely than we would with an average person. But the nice thing about having plates and screws in there is it's supported immediately, so people can start rehabbing the shoulder more quickly. Now, at first, of course, the plate and screws is the only thing holding the load, so you can't go too heavy, but it certainly gets people more comfortable quickly. And then, of course, they can start moving the shoulder and doing some light lifting on an earlier timeline, which are all things that help get the athlete back sooner. So, it's not going to change it by months. We're talking weeks difference. But when you're talking about an NFL player, weeks matter, right? Especially in season. If it's off season, not as big a deal, but in season, those things do matter. So we'll see how it plays out.
So this is going to be a really stupid question, but once that's all healed, does that plate and screw stay in there for the rest of his life?
Good question. So the answer is generally we leave them in if we can.
Okay.
Some people do get irritation. If you take them out, at first there's a stress riser because you have those holes in the bone. So, where we have the plate, it lays on top, but the screws, of course, go through the bone. When you take them out, you're left with a hole. The body does fill that in, but for a couple months, it's a weak spot. So there is a higher incidence of refracture. So you definitely wouldn't want to take the plate out during the season. Otherwise, the risk of rebreak would be very high. But long term, we take probably, maybe 25%, maybe a little bit less of clavicle plates. If you feel your own collarbone or clavicle, it is right under the skin, right? So people can feel the plate. Sometimes it bothers them, sometimes it doesn't. But the main reason to take it out is because it's irritating the patient.
So, and the other part in this, too, is could this almost, because this is a guy, too, remember we were talking about with that Jones fracture in his foot. Mm-hmm. With this timeline here, too, I got to imagine that's going to be good for his foot and potentially do a lot of healing for that injury, too.
That is an excellent point because resting that Jones fracture is going to be one of the ways they can get it to go in the right direction. Now, the one thing is you wouldn't want to do surgery on both. So let's say let's fix the Jones fracture and the collarbone, because usually if you're going to put a screw in a Jones fracture, you're going to want longer than a 6-week recovery. So that would be the only thing. For a split second, I thought the same thing. I wonder if they'd consider doing that, but the timelines don't match up well. But the rest will help. And clearly he's not going to be able to go full bore on that thing for a while. So, yeah, this is potentially a little bit of a silver lining that maybe he comes back at the back half of the season, heal all the way around. That's certainly a possibility.
I want to go back to the game against the Lions, and Zach Tom did not play in this game, and he got hurt kind of on friendly fire when Aiden Hutchinson lit up Jordan Love, and Jordan Love, got pushed into Tom, and Tom looked like he landed on his hip. And now I've been seeing people saying it's a hip pointer. Can you explain to us what exactly a hip pointer is?
Yeah, so a hip pointer is an injury. Usually it's basically in the family of like a contusion where you hit right along the crest of your pelvis. So that part of the pelvis is called the ilium. That ridge is called the iliac crest. So if you hit right along the iliac crest, you can get basically a hematoma underneath there. It can be really, really painful. I don't think it's a hip pointer because usually those are, although very painful, they resolve fairly quickly. So to miss 2 weeks, that's atypical. If you land more on the side, you could have an issue with the troch. So kind of now not the pelvis, now you're down on the hip, actually the side of the hip. Right there, that kind of bump that you feel, that's called the greater trochanter. So that's the attachment for your abductors. You have the IT band running there. You can get bursitis. So he could have some irritation right there. That would be more likely to linger. But even that is a little atypical for it to keep him out. So I have to be honest with you, it is a little bit of a head scratcher why they're keeping him out. Maybe they're just saying, look, let's let it heal up and just get him right and not have a lingering issue. But I guess it could be the one. Certainly, if it was fractured, they would say that. So broken bone, either the pelvis or the hip, that would be a very significant injury, and that's not what's going on. So it's probably on the line of a contusion to one of those structures. But again, hard to say for sure. Neither one of them makes complete sense, to be honest. But like I said, it may be just they're playing it safe. It's early on. Let's just get him healthy and get him back.
Yeah, because it seems like there's like some, you on NFL.com it says hip, but you look at the actual Packers injury report, then they list it as an oblique injury for him. So, is that kind of just like almost same area, or does that tell you something maybe different?
Yeah, so the obliques, of course, are part of the abdomen complex. So they're the ones that run, as the name implies, obliquely off the side. So they kind of go from the ribs down to the edge. So, that could be more in line with like an oblique strain. So he may have gotten hit and kind of jarred at the same time. Certainly when you're dealing with muscle injuries, a week or two, sometimes longer, is not uncommon. So that would honestly fit more than like a hip pointer or a contusion as a trochanter. So to me, if the Packers are saying more oblique, that fits more in line with this timeline than it does a true contusion to the pelvis or hip, truthfully.
Interesting. George Kittle last week, hamstring injury. They've already put him on injured reserve, so he's going to be missing the next 4 weeks. I got to imagine then, would that probably be like the grade 3 that we sometimes hear, sometimes you talk about, if they're already shutting him down for the next few weeks?
Yeah, it's going to be a legit one. The low grade ones, the guys are going to be kind of more almost day to day, frankly, if not week to week. If they're just shutting them down, because I think what's at a minimum of 4 or is it 6?
I think it's 4 now. Yeah,
4. Oh yeah, 4 weeks. So yeah, that's a legit one. So he's going to have, I'm sure, he had an MRI. It's going to show a substantial injury to the muscle belly or the muscle tendon junction, probably a pocket of blood in there. They're going to, let him rest it, let it heal, try to decrease scar tissue formation, get him going, and see where the dust settles. But the good news is, again, guys tend to bounce back well from that. But I think a lot of teams are learning, the good old days of like rub dirt on it and get back out there. It often leads to bigger problems and recurrent injuries. And, you don't have to tell the Niners about recurrent injuries with CMC over there, right? So they're probably like, let's just play this one safe. So I'm sure there's an element of that as well, where it's like, let's get him healthy, get this behind us, and then go forward.
I want to ask you about the Xavier Worthy injury situation. So just a refresher, Travis Kelce actually kind of ran into him in week 1, and that's a big dude to run into.
Kind of.
Yeah. So it sounds like Xavier dislocated his shoulder. He's not having surgery right now. He's rehabbing and such. What's kind of like, could this be dependent on the severity of how he dislocated his shoulder, whether there's going to be surgery or not, or what have you seen or read to kind of maybe give us an idea about this injury?
Yeah, shoulder instability, aka dislocations, we use the term shoulder instability, is a very common issue in football players. So, I'm probably treating like 10 high school football players with it right now. So we see it a lot. So there's a lot of variables that go in. So first off, is it going out the back or out the front? Is it recurrently unstable? Has it dislocated more than once, or is this his first time dislocating? And then, of course, the actual injury pattern itself. So, of course, he's gotten an MRI. And of course, they don't disclose that to us, but it'll show the injury pattern. So if it's an isolated tear of the labrum and it looks relatively small, we don't see any bony injuries, we don't see any cartilage injuries, they're often going to get guys to play through that and see if we can get through the season. And, the tricky part is if it is, let's say, for example, anterior instability, which based on the impact, I would say it could have been either way. You would think a direct blow would push the shoulder out the back, and that could be the mechanism. But a lot of times if the arm gets jarred up and out, it actually comes out the front. So, when that impact was just, and he got trucked, right? Those guys just drilled each other. So it's hard to say exactly what happened. So it could have went either way. But with anterior instability, we put people in these, either like a Sully brace or a shoulder immobilizer. They basically stop the arm from coming up and out. For a lot of players, not a big deal. Of course, a receiver, that is a big deal. So I'm wondering if this is more maybe a posterior instability, and they're hoping they can just kind of get him through. He'll probably have some irritation and pain here and there, but get through the season and then get it fixed in the off season. But again, without knowing for sure, it's a little bit of guesswork. But we often are able to get athletes through the season with labral tears. But if it keeps coming out, or we see an MRI with a specific injury pattern, we may say, look, it makes sense to just shut this season down and get it fixed, and then just get it right.
Man. Hey, going back to the 49ers, I got to ask you about this Brock Purdy situation, especially the way how Ian Rappaport from the NFL Network described this. And as somebody who has gone through turf toe like you, so Brock Purdy they're listing it, toe and shoulder injuries, but Ian Rappaport said, quote, a variant of turf toe. So, is there different variants of turf toes out there, or what do you think he's kind of referring to?
So, in the straight sense of the term, not really. So turf toe, again, as a turf toe sufferer myself, I can tell you it's one of those things, like, it sounds like such not a big deal, but it is a big deal. So it's an injury to the plantar plate, so the bottom part of the great toe, that big knuckle. And about half of the force you generate with push-off comes through that part of the foot. So it is a big blow, right? It ended Deion Sanders' career. So it's a significant injury. So with that, now there are grades to it, but usually we wouldn't use that as the term variant. Now, I will say there is one slight variant, and I wonder if they're alluding to this, where instead of the toe just coming straight up and damaging just the volar or the bottom part, it also injures the ligaments on the side. So we basically call, like everyone probably knows what a bunion is, where the toe kind of goes in. It's called hallux valgus. So you can get a traumatic hallux valgus. And actually, that's the kind of turf toe I had. So I had that variant, I guess, as well. So maybe that's what he has, where you rip the bottom ligaments and the inner ligaments, and you basically all of a sudden, in one step, have a bunion, like your toe is kind of pointing in. So maybe that's what they're alluding to. But either way, it's like every step hurts. You can't push off without a ton of pain. So, especially a position like quarterback where you need to be mobile, it's a legit injury. So, as of now, it looks like they're going to be trying to treat it non-operatively. So they're going to tape it, brace it, probably put a carbon fiber sole in a shoe, and then obviously see how it plays out. Yeah,
man. Do you think the timeline is, what's 3 to 5 weeks or whatever they got at? Is that more for the shoulder, you think, or do you think that's with the turf toe under, or is it just a combination of both?
Probably a combo. I would tell you, they really haven't said a ton about the shoulder, so it's harder to say. The toe, I can tell you, if it's a legit injury, it's going to be a good month. I doubt he'll be back sooner than a month, but those big carbon fiber inserts in the shoe can offload it, so that can make it a little bit more tolerable. But I can tell you, if it's a higher grade injury, it's going to be a while till he can push off without a lot of pain. And the problem is you don't want to push through that one, because that you need that to heal correctly. Because if you don't, then you have joint instability, then you have bigger problems, and then you don't want this to be a career-threatening injury. And they obviously just signed him to a big contract, so they're not going to want to put his future in jeopardy. So they're going to play it the right way. So my guess is it's going to be followed with a couple MRIs, serial exams, and then just kind of see how it plays out.
All right, before I let you go, I got to ask your thoughts on your team from last Monday night and then getting set for Sunday Night Football. What'd you think about McCarthy and I guess like tale of two halves, really, a little bit?
Yeah, the fourth quarter, he looked like the guy we wanted, right? He played with a lot of intention and was throwing the ball really well, making good reads. I don't know if it was play calling that KOC was trying to hold him back a little bit just to kind of get him in the groove. It's hard to say for sure, but boy, he looked good in that fourth quarter, and he didn't look so hot in the first half. So, I like to say this, that the second half guy was the guy that we're going to get. But we live in a society. Well, we're part of it, right? We're on, social media talking about it. we're in a society where people want instant results. And so it's important to remember, he's functionally a rookie quarterback. So I'm going to give him a lot of leeway. But was I happy with the performance? Absolutely. I mean, to lead a fourth quarter comeback like that shows a lot of poise. So happy. Obviously, it should be a good matchup. The Falcons are a good team. I mean, I think they have a young quarterback as well, right? So it's going to be a good game. And I think the Vikings can pull it out. Home field advantage is crucial, as the Packers have seen the first 2 weeks. So I expect it to be a good game, and hopefully JJ can keep taking those steps. And with these young quarterbacks, you give them some success, you get their confidence up, they play well. The talent's there, and he's got a lot of talent around him as well. So my hope is we can ride that.
Absolutely. Well, hey, I know you got a game tonight, too, against El Camon. So best of luck to you and the boys over there. And we appreciate you hopping on this morning there, bud.
Absolutely. You guys have a great one.